Hello, friends. Today is Saturday, and I wanted to get into First Esdras chapter 5 and verse 9, the field note there. There's a lot of things to observe and to strengthen you in accordance to these field notes, these Apocrypha marginal notes. And it's brilliant because it helps you understand the conception of the 1611. It helps you understand the roots of wisdom involved with the composition of this book. And it teaches you to compare spiritual things with spiritual. And that's kind of what we're going to get into today, is comparing spiritual things with spiritual things. So let's look at this note. Here we are. First Esdras 5:9. As you can see, there is a letter here, the letter E. It references you up here to E. It says Parash, Ezra 2:3, Nehemiah 7:9. Wherefore, brevity, look for the true numbers of the particulars following. For here they vary much, and the names much more. One thing I wanted to note before we begin is that the Apocrypha introduces a new reference system using the alphabet. As you can see, you have A, B, C, D, which ties into the text for references. The reason why they introduce a new system of referencing is because of the density of the names and numbers of the text. As you know, the Apocrypha is telling you here, Ezra 2, Nehemiah 7, they're giving you a reference to another genealogical list and names. So they're transliterating from Hebrew into Greek. That's why there are so many references. If you used a double bar or a cross symbol, it would be very confusing for the reader to associate the names to these names. It would be very tedious to do that. So because of the density, they designed this system to show you a parallel account with the transliteration of the names from Esdras and Nehemiah's genealogical list. So it's for density purposes and for clarity for the reader. Now, one thing that we need to address, it says, wherefore brevity, look for the true numbers of the particulars following. For here they vary much, and the names much more. So they're giving you one note for this entire section. So they're telling you to look here to Ezra 2 and Nehemiah 7 for clarity. So they're telling you to look at these other witnesses to strengthen the record here and to show you the transliteration from the Hebrew names into the Greek names. And so I find it fascinating because they're ultimately challenging you to look at the other perspectives of these books to give you a stronger historical account of these people and the events that occurred. So, some of the notes that I have. it begins first Esdras 5, kind of in the beginning of the chapter. And the reason it appears early is to yield to you and show you that there are differences throughout the census. So there's a historical census, and they're showing you, hey, look, these names read differently than Ezra and Nehemiah, but we've reconciled these names. That's why there's such a compact, dense list. And they give you this note as a reference to go back and compare the parallel accounts. This census preserves historical records, and fidelity to the text requires preserving the differences. So in modern textual criticism, a lot of people who are in that business, they make conjectures, which is an educated guess, and they implement this guess into the text. That's why you have so many different versions of the Bible, is because people are making conjectures. They're hypothesizing what it should say rather than spending time with the Lord to get the perfect and exact translation. So, with that being said, you see the differences in the words or the names and the numbers. It's because they're preserving the actual documents perfectly. Faithful preservation of every authentic witness. So when you're going through these lists of names, you're seeing that the copies or the manuscripts that they had access to, they were preserving them exactly as they should be preserved, rather than inserting a false conjecture. This proves the scripture's reliability through these historical reports. So because they're showing you, hey, compare these to Ezra and Nehemiah and see for yourself and acknowledge that these actually call for a stronger witness together when they're all working together, the Apocrypha working with Nehemiah and Ezra. The margin outer court introduces a new reference system by alphabet. We kind of went over that due to the density of the notes. So instead of them telling you every single name, as you can see here, instead of saying, hey, let's explain this, they're saying, where for brevity, look for the true numbers of the particulars following. So following Ezra, Nehemiah, for here they very much, and the names much more, due to the transliteration and the different historical analysis that you see there. Okay. Then it says in my notes, they're preserving the received text, the text that they had received from the Lord. And this is revealing the evidence. So they're showing you that the text that they had access to, the evidence that they had, the reports that they had, they're showing you that they line up with Ezra and Nehemiah. The density of letters, so the reference letters, proves intentional comparison with Ezra and Nehemiah. So they're showing you that they're comparing the Apocrypha with these Old Testament books in a sync. They're syncing them together. This is presented as historically interlocked, meant to be read alongside Ezra and Nehemiah. So they're showing you that these should be read together, not separate. proving that a third witness, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esdras, strengthens the record, showing God's preserved truth through the collision of these testimonies. So, long story short of this analysis, the translators are instructing you to compare the Apocrypha with the Old Testament for clarity. So may this analysis help you in your research and understanding of the 1611 King James Holy Bible. God bless you, and more to come.